Hi everybody, welcome to another edition of On Oshkosh. I'm your host Cheryl Hentz, and I'm very pleased to welcome back to the show someone who's been here once before, possibly twice, but no more than that certainly. Our Oshkosh Area School District's superintendent, Dr. Bryan Davis is here. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you, Cheryl, for having me. I appreciate it.
Yes, we got a lot to cover tonight.
Yeah.
The school district has been making all kinds of news.
Yes.
So, and most of it not too good. So, so we're going to touch on those things tonight, of course. We've got a lot to cover, and an hour really doesn't seem like it's. I forgot to start this timer, so now it's starting probably 60 seconds too late, but better late than never. So we've got a lot to cover, but I think if we just kind of plug along, we can get everything done. So first and foremost, there will be, for viewers and listeners as well, there will be a $197.8 million referendum on the April 1st ballot. Now this has been called a facilities referendum. It's also been called a capital referendum. We're going to talk more about the referendum itself a little bit later on,
Sure.
but why am I hearing two different ways to describe it? Is there a difference between facilities referendum and a capital referendum?
No, they would really be the same thing. I think that the technical term would be a capital referendum.
Okay.
There's two different types of referendums. One would be capital, the other one would be operational.
Okay.
And so this one is capital, but that would also mean facilities.
Yeah, okay, good. So let's just dig right in, because there's no way to avoid it.
Okay.
The district purchased 5 homes near South Park Middle School to do a school expansion, which could have involved either adding on to the existing building or raising the existing building and constructing something brand new in the size that's needed. Well, after you guys paid $1.2 million for these 5 homes, I guess let's just start there. Why did you pay so much for homes? Because that's really a very big overvaluation.
Yeah, well, it was working with those homeowners, right? And so we want to make sure that we have that we're paying an appropriate amount, for that price.
Sure.
We certainly don't want to eminent domain anyone, in that situation. And so we went and talked to those homeowners in that area. Some decided to sell and some didn't, as we're moving forward. And and that's where we landed.
Okay, all right. Eminent domain is an ugly thing, that's for sure. But I guess, I've never had it happen to me. I've had relatives who have had it happen to them. One cousin in particular had it happen. But I guess as a taxpayer, I would rather someone declare eminent domain and, they're still getting a fair price for their property, but we're not having to pay through the nose to get something that's needed. So I sometimes look at like $1.2 million for 5 houses in an older part of town. I think that's really a lot, and I'm not sure that, I'll just be real honest, as a taxpayer, I don't see that that's being good stewards of our tax dollars, but that's just my humble opinion.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And the intent was to be able to on that campus to be able to have green space as we were going to expand there. So that certainly was part of the strategic planning as we went into that.
Yeah.
So that was the context of it.
Yeah. So anyway, you guys bought these homes, $1.2 million, and then it was discovered in December. Now, I'm not sure if it was December just like a couple of months ago, as we're taping this on February 20th, or it was December of 2023. Was it just a couple months ago?
Correct, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So what you guys discovered was that you can't do the project at all. The school is in the runway/departure zone of Wittman Regional Airport. And this was something that the county passed and changed the zoning, basically. But buildings that have large gatherings of people, such as schools and hospitals, are prohibited in the runway/departure zones because of the high risk of plane crashes. Now, the kicker to this is the district missed a notice about an October 2022 meeting from the county and the city that was informing residents who were impacted by this and other entities, i.e. the school district, of the impending zoning changes surrounding the regional airport. And those zoning changes ended up being adopted by the county in October of 2023. And then you guys first learned about this in December of 2024, so 14 months later. How did this happen, Bryan? I mean, who dropped the ball where the meeting notice was missed, or I don't want to use the word ignore, because I don't think anyone in the district would intentionally ignore something.
Correct. Yeah.
Especially with that kind of magnitude attached to it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But somebody somewhere dropped the ball.
Yep.
And it's a big ball that they dropped.
Yeah, and ultimately, that's our team, and that's on me. So I apologize, for that, from to you and to the community, for missing that. It's certainly a lesson that we've learned, and as we're moving forward, have developed a process working closely with the county in the last couple of months, with the county and the city, to work on a pre-submittal process that we'll do as we're moving forward.
Okay.
That'll help catch any of those changes as we would move into the future, to make sure that doesn't happen again. But we fully take responsibility for that.
Yeah, well, that's good. And yeah, we can talk a little bit more about these steps that you're putting in place so that this hopefully doesn't happen again.
Yeah.
How was this overlooked? I've talked to people, I haven't yet gotten an answer I've not gotten an answer, period, much less one that makes sense or is an acceptable answer.
Yeah, how it was overlooked?
Yeah, well, how was the meeting notice not paid attention to or overlooked? And then how did you guys not know about this for even after they, passed or approved the changes to the zoning? It took another 14 months before you guys found out.
Yeah, so it would have been notices in the paper, just related to the notice on the discussion that would have happened with the zoning, and then a letter that we would have gotten and a notice to that meeting. So those are the things that were missed as we're moving forward. And so fortunately, we were able to, through our community feedback sessions this fall, we were able to get that notification. We had checked with the city then in October to check on zoning. At that point, we're told that there wasn't anything that would affect our building in October, and then came back in December after having further contact, and then got to the bottom of this. So that was our process as we move forward. Again, nothing that anybody intentionally did.
No, of course not.
Mistakes happen, but again,
how was it missed? See, I'm
sure
still trying to get an answer to that. How was it missed? Because yes, it's not just in the paper under like legal notices or whatever, but there's sometimes an article done about it. You guys did get things in the mail.
We got one letter in the mail. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
What happened?
Yeah. Well, like I said, we missed it. So it wasn't anything that happened. It was something that didn't happen, which was related to us not seeing the letter that we received as we're moving forward. So again,
it got basically overlooked and thrown out.
Exactly. Okay. Yeah, overlooked. So, and again, thrown out, not like, I read this letter and it doesn't mean anything to me.
Right.
So overlooked, I think, is more accurate. And as we're moving forward, again, we're committed to be, partners with the city and the county on the pre-submittal process, which we've gone through for the rest of our projects. And as we're moving forward, similar to like developers that would be looking, to come to the city, we'd be able to bring some tentative plans, and that'll allow us to make sure that we're ahead of the curve as we move forward.
Okay. Lots of players in all of this. The homes are in the city of Oshkosh. The airport is part of the county property.
Right.
You guys have your own governmental body as a school district. Is there, I hate using the word culpability, but I am going to use that word. No, let's say responsibility. Is there any responsibility here, Bryan, that lays at the doorstep of either the city of Oshkosh or Winnebago County?
Yeah, I mean, I think the responsibility is on us, right? They did their due diligence as far as the notices are concerned and sent the letter. So we take responsibility for it. I think as we're moving forward, again, we have reached out to the city and the county and say, hey, like, as we're working together, if you have anything here, to be able to work forward, let's do a better job of partnering. But certainly we're, as a district, it's we take responsibility for it. Again, apologize for that. It shouldn't have happened. It did happen, and we're moving forward.
Sure. Well, before we move forward, let's, this is a big, costly mistake. And there's no way to undo it. What are you going to do with the property that you hold?
Yeah, so the property is...
Because it does have some value.
Absolutely, it does, yes. Yeah, and we think pretty significant value as we would move forward. So so we've been working again with the city and the county, and we have some assurances that we can sell those lots. And so as we would look at those properties to be able to sell those lots to people that are interested, and then also looking at the development of the South Park middle school building. And so that's something that we can do, through the zoning. There's I think it's like 20 units per acre based on the zoning restrictions, and so we'll be
kind of seeing that zoning thing right now. I don't, it looks just like a big cross with a long arm on one side.
Yep. So
what is it that we're really seeing here?
Yeah, so I can describe that. So that's part of Chapter 24, which was the zoning code. So the dark green represents the north-south runways, north-south and then east-west runways at Wittman Field.
All right.
And what you'll see there is that in the north-south runway, where the black dot is where South Park Middle School is. And so that's inside the Air 2 zone that they describe as part of the landing and departure zone. That there's some restrictions on, as you had mentioned, having large numbers of people like in that space, schools, hospitals, those types of things. And so that's the reason why we need to move out from South Park and be able to consolidate. And we'd consolidate at that Shapiro site, which would be outside of that zone, less than a mile away. And that site is actually a couple acres bigger. And so as we look to resell, then what we're able to do inside that zoning code is to be able to sell the South Park building and look for developers to be able to produce that into apartments similar to like we have done at some previous schools, Smith School being the last school. At that point, I think it was in 2018, 2019, a developer paid $400,000 for Smith School. And so we certainly believe that there's some significant value in the South Park building for those purposes, and we'll be looking for people that are interested in that if we do pass the referendum in April.
Okay, so you can not only sell the school district property that's there, but now those 5 lots that you bought are also property as well, and belonging to the district. And so there are 6 parcels of land, really, that you'll be able to sell. Do you think that you'll be able to recoup in some shape, form, or fashion the $1.2 million that was laid out?
Yeah, that's the plan. Yep.
Okay.
And we'll have to see what the market provides, but certainly that's the plan to be able to get to that mark.
Yeah. So what's interesting is you are now looking at taking over, basically demolishing the Jacob Shapiro School that currently exists and putting South Park there.
Well, it wouldn't be South Park necessarily, so it'd be a combination between Tipler and South Park, so a consolidation.
Right. And but what's wrong with the current building that's there? I mean, clearly it's not big enough. And do you have enough property to make it as large of a building as you want to make?
Yeah, so the new middle school on the Shapiro site, you're saying?
Yep.
Yeah, so the Shapiro building was built as an elementary school building and is an open concept building.
Yeah.
And so...
it was ahead of its time when it was put in.
Yeah, and so certainly, for the purpose of a middle school and a consolidated middle school really wouldn't serve our purpose as well. So, so demoing that school, one of the advantages of being on that site compared to even the South Park site is it's larger. So it's about 2 acres bigger than the South Park site. So as we would take the plans for the consolidated middle school, it fits very well within that Shapiro site.
Okay, so there's absolutely nothing there that could be salvaged and renovated. I mean, I hate to see a building just demolished.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah, not with the footprint that we would need for the middle school. Yeah, it wouldn't be anything that we could just salvage out of that.
Okay, all right. And so, what is the projected school population for that building if it gets built?
Yeah, so that building would be, so capacity of that building would be about 680 students as we would move forward.
Okay. Are there that many students in the 2 schools now?
We're at about, let's see, I think we're at about 600. So we'd be, yeah, I think we're at about that range. I'd have to look to make sure.
Okay. So you're building just a little bit larger than what you have right now. To hold those students.
Yeah, it'd be pretty close.
Okay, all right, very good. Well, what happens if, because people have noticed, and I mean, it's clearly obvious that, you know, Jacob Shapiro is very close also to the airport. And the 2 schools are within a mile of each other.
Yeah.
How is it that with Jacob Shapiro being so close to the airport as it is, that it just kind of squeaks past being in this overlay or this runway area? Yeah,
that's part of the zoning that was run, and I think calculations that are done with the airport and the FAA, just related to airports, you know, takeoff and landing, that type of thing is how the map was produced. So that was part of the code that was passed back in 2022, 2023. As we move forward, and we've checked also with the airport director about expansion of runways and that type of thing that might influence that, and there's no plans to do that at this time.
Well, at this time, no.
Right.
But when you started buying the first school, or I'm sorry, the first house, these plans weren't in effect either, and all of a sudden the county put these things forth, and you know, even if you had been aware of what was going on, you know, I mean, you wouldn't have continued buying homes, but there wouldn't have been so much money spent. So what's to prevent the county from coming along? Okay, you've got a plan now to build a new school that's going to house South Park and Tipler, and who's to say that the county doesn't come along and say, well, now we need this much space too, because they are so close. And so they then extend their runway area. What's to stop them from doing that? And what assurance does the school district have that that's not going to happen?
Yeah, there's no plans to do that at this time. So, and those are the assurances that we're going off of.
Yeah.
And we wanted to make sure, as we're looking at you know, a consolidation for the middle schools, that you know, it's optimal for us to be able to get to a current school site. And so that's certainly has been the best option for us as we're looking at moving forward.
Okay. Do you have to vacate South Park?
Do we have to vacate South Park?
I mean, with these zoning changes, do you have to get out of that school?
No.
Okay. All right. But you're saying that, because I read a quote from you someplace, I'm not sure where, that you know, you feel it's beneficial to get out of there sooner rather than later?
We do, yeah, for a couple of reasons. So I think one, you know, the original parts of that building are 120 years old, and so we have you know, some of the old infrastructure that you know, just continues to be a liability for us, you know, as we're moving forward, eating away at some of that foundation. So ADA accessibility is difficult in that building, just because of, you know, the era that it was built, and so certainly to create the most inclusive environment for our students, we think that's, you know, that's an important part, and then be able to have the increase in services for our students in a consolidated between the middle schools, to be able to have those increases. Certainly are part of the benefits, and why we would want to, again, and if we're going to build new, to be able to put that asset outside of the landing and departure zone. That's important for us.
You know, this whole thing about the airport, you would think that we're sitting on property that abuts LAX, or New York's LaGuardia Airport or something like that. I mean, this isn't even a commercial airport in the sense where you've got passenger flights coming and going. I mean, the most time we're the busiest is during July when EAA comes in. So, I mean, I guess I just don't understand. Did you find out, did the county ever explain to you why they made this change? Why they felt it necessary to make the change?
Yeah, I think it was, again, working with the FAA and some of the upgrades that they wanted to make. I think the previous ones were back from the, I believe, 1980s. And so just updating, again, safety protocols. And again, it's not for, individual residences in that area, but looking at large groups as we're moving forward.
Yeah. So that whoever buys the property, especially the school property that you're going to be selling, whoever buys it, they're going to have to be careful about what they put in there too.
Yeah, and again, there's guidance around that, but we've got the approval, following those guidelines to be able to develop that building.
Okay.
So,
all right.
And it's a good location, right across from South Park.
It is. Park. So I guess the next question then becomes, you had this referendum that you were going to put forth. It was 198.6 million, I think. And now with your new plan that you've had to kind of revise because of all this problem with the airport stuff, it's now $197.8 million. And that's how'd you get that $500, $600 and some $1,000 reduction?
Yeah, $800,000 reduction. Yeah, so
math wasn't my strong suit.
Yeah, no, understandable. A couple things. So one, when we were looking at the demo of the building of South Park, so when we're going to stay on the South Park site, the demo of the South Park building compared to the demo of the Shapiro building is less. And just by the scale of the buildings. The second part of that is that as we were looking at part of the plan is to be able to consolidate our pre-kindergarten folks under one roof. And so when we were originally going to do that at Shapiro, now we're planning on doing that at Tipler. There's less cost in renovation on the Tipler site to be able to make that a 4K center than there would have been at Shapiro. So between those two projects, those are the reduction of $800,000 for the total.
A building that's 120 some years old, there's got to be asbestos in there. There's got to be lead in there. So with this $800 and some $1,000 reduction, have you taken into account those expenses also?
Well,
what it's going to cost you to remediate, to clean that up before you can,
We would be selling that, right? So we would make that's part of the sale.
Oh, okay. All right. Interesting. Yeah. That could be a tough sell because I don't know that someone's going to want to buy something. And
well, we'll see. Again, I've had some people contact us, that are interested. But we'll go through a full competitive RFP process as we move forward.
Sure.
So we're hopeful.
All right. So the newly adjusted referendum price. I'm very confused by this, and I'm sure I'm not the only one. And I have to read it because I don't have this committed to memory. It's designed to improve student safety and learning spaces while maintaining a $0 tax increase to the debt levy. Now, I think most people, if they hear that, they say, oh, well, what's the problem? It's $0 tax increase. They forget about that it says to the debt levy, but they right away their mind just sees $0 tax increase, that's great, big deal about this referendum. Let's just pass it because it's not going to cost us any more money. But that's not really the case, right? Because debt levies are different from, people hear things like mill rates and tax levy and what else here? Debt levies, and all these things mean something a little bit different. So the district is not saying that if this referendum gets passed, it's not going to increase our taxes at all, correct?
Correct. That yes, and so that's an important clarification. So the debt levy is the payment, annual payment that we're making towards our referendum debt. So specifically things that have been passed at previous referendums. So so we're currently paying debt on the 2020 referendum and back on the 2012 referendum for Oak Lawn. So we're currently paying off of that debt. So if you think about it as a car payment, if you will, so this would be the annual payment that we're making is on that debt right now. So what we're saying is that we can bring on these projects and not have that be an increase to the debt levy. So essentially the payment that you'd be making year to year would be consistent with what you're making right now. So this year out of our debt levy, we're paying $21.5 million. If we pass this referendum, next year our payment would be $21.5 million. And then we have that scheduled out over a 20-year period of time.
Can we see that graphic one more time, folks, in the control room? There we go. So this is sort of what you were talking about then.
Correct.
And some of that print is pretty small. I can't really read it, but
I can walk you through it.
Okay,
so,
great.
Yeah. So the dark color. So again, in that first year would be this year, 2025. So that represents previous referendum debt. And so you can see a majority of that chunk is in the first year, and then there's a little bit spread out in payments over the upcoming years. When you look at the light colors on that graph, that would represent the debt that would be coming on related to the projects that would be passed in April of this year. And so essentially, again, we're out of creating consistency and stability for taxpayers, being able to have that debt be the same amount of debt payment that we'd be making from this year to the next year. And then you can see when you get to 2030, then there would be a decrease of that debt levy to 14.25.
yeah, and it eventually just fades off.
Right.
And so the 2012 referendum was for Oak Lawn.
Correct.
And the 2020, for some reason, I'm spacing out on what that school was. What was that for?
Yeah, so that was Vel Phillips and then Menominee Elementary School. So that was a consolidation on the north side, along with some safety and security upgrades and such things.
For some reason, I was thinking it was something else, not Vel Phillips and Menominee. What's the one? See, I can't keep track of my schools. What's the school that's kind of behind Pick and Save there on the north side? That is Oak Lawn.
Yeah, and that
okay.
would, yep, and that
so
would
that's the 2012.
Correct.
Boy, that seems like a long time ago.
Yeah.
And really, well, I guess it is.
It goes fast.
But looking at the school, it looks so new.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah, they do a great job over there.
Okay, so let's say the referendum passes this April. What does that do to the taxpayers' taxes that they get in December?
Yeah, so again, it would be there would be no increase to the debt levy as we would be moving forward. And so basically that would be the same amount that you paid this year related to referendum debt would be the same as next year as we move forward. So there would be no increase based on that debt levy. Now every year from a different operational, and some of that's dependent on state aid, the rest of the levy to be paid. We don't know where that's going to land based on state budgets, and there's a lot of factors that go into that.
Right.
But what we're committing to is making sure that what we can control is that debt levy part, and that's something that we're saying it would be a $0 increase moving forward.
Okay.
In
So
December.
now I'm still confused. I think now I'm even more confused because I said, a $0 tax increase to the debt levy is not the same as whether or not your taxes are going to go up, because there is a difference. So you're saying that even if this passes, it is not going to cost the taxpayers anything additional in their tax bill next December.
In the debt section of their tax bill next December. So, and that's a portion. So the debt levy is a portion of the entire levy that we would commit to spending, right? And so The other portion, so beyond the debt levy, the other portion of the levy is dependent on state aid and operational costs and like that type of thing, and that could go up or down. This year, for example, our levy was down 5.05%.
Yes, that was a good thing.
But yeah, about $3.5 million, and so so that's something that we just play out every year.
Okay.
But again, what we're committing to, similar to like we did this year with the 5% decrease, committing to in that amount was $21.5 million in the debt levy.
Okay.
So we're committing to that amount again.
So typically when a referendum is being talked about, people from the district say, and this is true not just for the school district, but anyone putting forth a referendum, they say, well, what this means in simple terms is if you own a home that's $100,000 of assessed value, you're going to see an increase of $8 on your taxes.
Yeah.
So you're not. What are you saying?
So we're
See,
saying that amount.
I hate this whole thing. I really do because
Yeah.
I don't understand it, and I'm going to be the first to admit it. It's a very confusing thing. All I know is I want to know what my tax bill is going to look like from the Oshkosh Area School District, and I don't know.
Yeah,
If you have a $100,000 home and this thing gets passed, how much more is it going to cost you?
So going back to that original question, and typically these types of projects would be an increase to that debt levy because you would be increasing the amount of debt that you're paying as you would be bringing off projects. So some of the strategic planning that our board has done is prepaid some debt from previous referendum to be able to create this very unique situation where we can bring on this new debt and it would be a $0 increase.
Maybe that's where I'm getting confused
it would be a
because
$0
this is
increase.
Something, you're right, it is very unique.
It's very unique.
I mean, that's why my brain is not comprehending this.
Yeah, no, it's very unique, and that's why we want to be able to just talk through this because typically you would have an increase, to your taxes that would be just the debt levy because you would have that situation. So we've been able to again prepay debt and be able to get in this situation where it would be a $0 increase, whether it's a $100,000 home or a $50,000 home or a $400,000 home, it would be a $0 increase. Yeah.
Okay, and is that for the life of the referendum?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
So, and that's what that chart showed would be for the first 5 years, it would be at that $21.5 million.
Right.
And then in 2031, then it drops down actually to $14.25 million.
Okay.
And that runs then throughout the rest of the bonding. We can
Okay.
bond for up to 20 years. And so that's the length that would run.
Okay. All right, very good. So let's talk about the proposed referendum that's coming up in a couple of months. We've got a graphic that we can pull up that kind of shows what the referendum. Let's pull up the one that talks about how the referendum is going to be worded. Let's bring that up first. Nope. There we go.
Yep.
So, if people can read this, essentially, why don't we just tell people what this $197.8 million is going to be used for?
Yep. Yeah, so that would be outlined in the bullet points. So you can see construction of a new middle school at the existing Shapiro site, which we were talking about previously, and removing the current building. So that would be one. Construction of additions and renovations on Traeger Elementary School, Franklin Elementary School, and Oakwood Elementary School. Renovations to Perry Tipler Middle School to convert that to a pre-kindergarten center and the recreation department offices would both be housed under one roof. Construction and an addition and renovation to the for an auditorium at North High School, and then we've got renovations at Reed, E. Cook, and Lakeside Elementary Schools to add air conditioning, and then the purchasing of furnishings, fixtures, equipment, that type of thing.
Okay. Yeah. So if the rec department's going to move into the Perry Tipler Middle School building, what will you do with the rec department then that's in the downtown area?
Yeah, so that's another building that we would look to sell. Yeah.
Okay.
So.
All right. Well, you're in the real estate business now, aren't you?
Yeah, we're trying to right size. Trying to right size as we're moving forward.
All right. So this is I believe this is supposed to be phase 2 of a 4-phase plan. Is that correct?
Correct.
If the referendum fails, here we go. What happens if phase 2 is not completed? So if the referendum fails, what's the end result here?
Yeah, I mean, our first step is to go back to the community and find out, why. So what are the things that we can learn? But one of the things that we do know is that, again, we have a 120-year-old, building at South Park. And so if we wait on, some of that construction, if you will, for a new middle school, just estimating the cost of what that's going to be over time. So, you can estimate about a 5% increase in inflation, labor costs and material costs and that type of thing. So the top line would show a new estimated middle school over time, and the bottom line then, if you were to look at all of phase 2, as we would move forward. So, but the first thing that we'll do is go back to the community if it doesn't pass, go back to the community and find out why and some of those nuances, and if we would need to make some changes to the question, then that's something we'd have to have a community conversation about.
Okay, can we see the other part of this, guys, in the control room? There we go. So let's talk about this a little bit.
Yeah, so again, a 120-year-old building at South Park, certainly still inside that airport approach and departure zone. And so one of the things that we continue to worry about, and we do as good of a job of maintaining that building as we can, but if we ever get to the point where we have some significant leaking or issues there, and we would be forced to go to virtual learning because South Park students wouldn't be able to fit just into Traeger and Tippler as we go. So we're trying to stay ahead of those emergencies, and some millions of dollars worth of repairs, as you can see up there, that are needed for South Park moving forward. So just the things that we feel, we're better off moving away from that site. The Shapiro students, because of their declining enrollment, we'll still look at consolidating into some remaining West Side elementary schools, and then just not being able to take advantage of the operational savings that we captured. So in phase 1, we were able to capture $1.9 million in annual operational savings, and we want to be able to do that as we're moving forward for phase 2.
All right. Okay, let's talk about South Park and what its maintenance costs have been. I'm not looking for every little dollar or dime that's spent, but have there been major things that have had to have been accomplished there, say in the last 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, over time, and just looking at a lot of the repairs, like I said, there's a 120-year-old portion of that building, so very difficult, when that leaks, to be able to access pipes and, like you said, asbestos and those types of things, to be able to work through that. So, and I don't know the dollar amount off the top of my head, but just a matter of, making sure that we're maintaining that building because we have students and staff that are there. And as we would look at, what the repairs would be moving forward, there's, obviously significant with a building that's that old.
Just a thought. Have you guys reached out to the business community at all and said, this is what's needed. This is why it's important. And why I ask this is because, there is a technical college that did not want to go to referendum. And so they put together a very intricate, very well thought out capital campaign. And they reached out to, because let's face it, if you have students who are excelling and they're doing well, then they will probably stay here to go to school, or maybe stay here to go to college, whatever the case may be. But there's a reason for businesses and individuals as well to invest in this. Have you guys thought about doing any kind of a capital campaign rather than continuing to reach out to the taxpayers? Because sooner or later, taxpayers are going to be taxed out of their homes, and not just by the school district, by the city, and everybody, the county. We're going to reach a point where people are taxed out of their homes.
Yeah, and that's why we wanted to be sensitive. Certainly, again, and this is a $0 increase to the debt levy, and we want to be very sensitive to taxpayers as we're moving forward. I've had a lot of conversations with both the Chamber of Commerce and their membership, along with GoEDC and their membership over the years, to be able to just talk about different opportunities. And happy to announce that the Chamber of Commerce actually just put out a press release endorsing the referendum, and so they feel like it's a good investment to be able to make, and the volume that we would need to make, to be able to consolidate and have the services that we need for our students. They feel that this is the right way to go.
Well,
so
hopefully some of their members will step up and make some donations to this project.
We're always open to that, certainly.
All right. I've just been told we're down to 19 minutes, 18 minutes, something like that, and so we got so much more to cover. So you guys are, if this fails, we've talked about what's going to happen, and your backup plan for next year, which will be what? The same plan? Will you come back with the same plan, or will it be tweaked?
No, so going to get community feedback is going to be most important. So that'll be a process that we would work through, later in the spring, summer, early fall, just to be able to gather that feedback and find out, what was it about the plan that drew resistance, and why did people vote the way they did, and then based on that feedback, I think being able to go back and typically it would be tweaking the plan or make some accommodations based on that feedback. So we'd want to make sure that we're in line with that.
Okay. Speaking of feedback, they've got it up on the screen right now, so let's talk about this. The district has, and this is interesting, you've broken this down into two different things. You've got community info sessions, and then you've got questions and answer sessions. Human beings being what we are, I mean, if I go to a community info session, I'm going to want to be asking some questions.
Absolutely.
It doesn't seem like this is set up that way, though.
Yeah,
What's the difference between these?
Yeah, let me clarify. So at any of these sessions, there'll be question and answer time.
Okay.
So at the informational sessions, it's more of a formal presentation, around the slides, some of which we showed tonight. So a formal presentation, and then we always have time for question and answers after that, both in a large group setting and then individuals that want to talk. We certainly provide for that opportunity. So those are the formal sessions. The question and answer sessions are a little bit more intimate. They're built in for just a 10-minute overview. We wouldn't have slides necessarily that are part of that presentation. We had our first one at Carmel Crisp this past week, and again, just a more intimate setting for people to ask questions. Some people aren't comfortable coming to speaking in front of a bigger group or that type of thing. So we wanted to be able to accommodate, and then also be able to provide some weekend opportunities. And so we've been welcomed at the farmers market coming up for a couple times there, just to be able to catch people and just be available. So our goal is to be able to inform the community, so people can take that information, make an informed vote on April 1st.
Okay, and for folks who are listening to us on the radio, I'll just run by the dates real quick. Let's see, March 3rd at Oakwood Elementary, March 13th at South Park Middle School in the gym, March 18th, Franklin Elementary, March 26th, the Oshkosh Public Library, February 28th, the Senior Center in the Willow Room, which is in the South Building, March 12th at Elsewhere Market, and March 24th at Delta Family Restaurant, and then at the Oshkosh Farmers Market on March 8th and March 29th. And the March 8th one is at the Oshkosh Arena at 1212 South Main Street, and the one on March 29th is at the Oshkosh Convention Center. And I'm not going to give the times. People can go to your website to get the times and
thank you.
All that stuff. So I think that's good. Now, let's talk about, let's move away from this. Let's talk about the two newest schools in the district. We got Val Phillips Middle School, and we've got Menominee Elementary School, where the old Webster Stanley used to be.
Right.
So one of the questions that was posed to me, I'm getting caught on my microphone here, was in fact, a friend said, "My God, these buildings are huge. Why are they so huge?" There are government buildings in Washington, D.C. that are smaller. And truly there are. I mean, why are they so huge?
Yeah, well, and I think that's in context to maybe historically how big schools have been in Oshkosh. So if you take a look at Bell Phillips, for example, we've got about 890 students that are at, for a capacity at Bell Phillips, we've got about 800 students that are there. The new middle school that's being built, that is just opening in Menasha, is 1,000 students. The new middle school that's being built in Kaukauna is 1,200 students. And so when we're thinking about like the size of these buildings, like they're very comparable, if not a little bit smaller, to what schools are being built at right now. And so understandably, that's a little bit different. That's a change for Oshkosh. But as we're bringing more students under one roof, what we're finding the advantage of is being able to really be able to provide from a staffing standpoint a lot more full-time positions under one roof, which just eliminates the travel time, allows better connection between students and staff, so that's been some of the benefits that we've seen at both schools as we move forward.
Well, thinking about Vel Phillips, we've seen in the paper quite a bit where there are some real behavioral issues there. Why are there so many problems at that school?
Yeah, so we're certainly in a better situation than we were last year. So behaviors have improved, and in kind of growing into that space, and so that's something that we take a look at from a developmental standpoint, in middle school. It's one of our areas of focus, right? To be able to make sure that students, one can, understand what their boundaries need to be, and certainly, 6th, 7th, and 8th graders are, flexing their muscles a little bit and exploring, and so that's a natural part of the process. But we also want to make sure, again, that students understand, what the rules are, and as we're moving forward, and need to enforce some of that, and so we're in a much better space than we were this year. And some of the lessons that we learned through the consolidation process between Bell Phillips and Menominee Elementary School is setting out like behavioral expectations. And that when you're in two different schools, sometimes there's different ways to handle the hallways or different ways to handle classrooms, that type of thing. So year 2 at Bell Phillips, the staff has really done a great job. I actually just met with a group of staff members about 2 months ago to talk about the transition. So we had a cohort of teachers that have been, at either school before, have gone through the transition process. So it was really interesting to sit down with them and say, like, all right, so now that we've worked through that, give me some feedback. What are your perceptions on that? And they feel like we're making some good progress there. So
we just had up a picture of Vel Phillips, the front of the building. Can we see that again? And it looks like a very nice school, but it's a very large school. And if we could see the other picture, well, I don't know what that is.
Collaborative workspace.
Okay.
Yep, that's good space.
I wanted to see the exterior of the building from the other side. There we go. That would be as you're driving down Jackson Street.
Just inside of that, yeah, they'd be on the back side.
So that's what we're seeing there.
Yep.
And then if we can bring up Menominee Elementary, that would be good. That
would be the playground at Menominee.
At Menominee, that's the playground. Okay.
That would be on the back side.
I think we do have, well, that's obviously lockers. I believe we have an exterior shot of Menominee. Nope. I guess we don't have it.
Okay.
I'm being told. So, okay. So one thing, I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on this, but I do just want to mention it because I've heard this from a few different people, that Vel Phillips has bulletproof glass in at least part of the school, and that is not accurate information, correct?
That's correct.
So can you just tell us what what it is that they have, and it's not unique to just Val Phillips.
Correct, yeah. So they would have like a film basically that you would put on the glass that would be shatterproof. So if somebody came, with a crowbar and tried to break through it, it would keep that glass together and not and basically not allow somebody to just step through the glass.
Sure.
And so that's certainly very different from bulletproof. But it's some of the improvements that have been made over the last 5 or 6 years. For schools, that's pretty typical.
Yeah.
As we move through. Unfortunately, in an era of school safety being
what it is.
An issue, yeah.
For sure. All right. 2 school board members, while we're continuing our discussion of the district, because this wasn't good news either. 2 of your school board members, Dr. Tim Hess and Kelly DeWitt, were recently outed for having fake Facebook profiles in which they adamantly opposed the upcoming facilities referendum, and they talked about their feelings about the district, about district policy. The district's lawyer has looked into this, and he has said that there's been no violation of any of the rules or guidelines or policies for board members. Some people are calling for their, being removed from the school board. That's not possible because they're elected officials. So if members of the community want these 2 gone, you'll have to start a recall vote. And the process for starting a recall election is you got to meet a pretty high standard, and it's a lot of work. Not discouraging anyone from doing that if they feel that strongly about it, but it is not just as simple as, well, okay, we're going to vote these 2 out.
Correct.
It just doesn't happen. So going forward, what is the district doing are you creating new policies so that this kind of thing can't happen again? Or what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think President Wittman said it really well at our last meeting, in just naming the behavior as unacceptable, right, and being able to say we want to make sure that we have diverse voices, and that makes us stronger. We get to better solutions as we would have dialogue back and forth, but we have a standard that we need to be able to live at for elected officials in the community, and transparency and openness is an important part of that, and so. I thought she did a really good job, being able to lay that out, and we had a school board it's kind of self-evaluation process that they go through also to be able to again address it and then be able to move forward. So, well,
playing devil's advocate, these 2 have voted against the referendum being put on the ballot. They've been very outspoken about their feelings about the upcoming referendum. So, they're not divulging anything that has happened in closed session meetings or anything like that. Why shouldn't they be allowed to speak out, using a different voice, of course, because they've already used theirs in a professional capacity. I'm just going to say devil's advocate here. Why shouldn't they be allowed to do this?
Yeah, I think the idea is that as elected officials, we want to hear from our elected officials, from their voice. Right?
And they have.
Yeah.
You guys have.
Yes, and they have. And so I think that honesty and transparency, I think, continues to be important.
And they've done that.
Yep.
So I guess I don't understand why anyone really is having a problem with this. I mean, it's no different than any of us getting on social media and stating our feelings. And so I don't know. They feel, I guess, that it's squelching their First Amendment rights and that kind of thing. So is the district going to change any of its policies so that this doesn't happen in the future?
Yeah,
although you got to tread lightly there.
Yeah, and that'll be something that the Policy and Governance Committee would review if need be. But again, I would just refer people to President Wyman's statement that she made at the last meeting. That's recorded as part of our board meeting. I thought articulated things very well.
Sure, very good. I want to talk just a little bit about enrolled numbers of students in the district. How many are in the district this year?
Yeah, so we're just over 9,100.
9,100.
Yeah.
Okay. And is that down or up from last year?
Just down slightly, yeah. So, but not a significant amount. So I think we were
Okay.
down maybe 50 kids. 50,
Okay.
60 kids.
I did see one slide that showed, and I don't think we have it, but I did see a slide previously that showed that, the district was going to be losing, I wrote it down here someplace, losing about 100 students a year.
Yeah.
Where are they going?
Yeah, and that was part of our demographics. So one of the things that we have as part of our presentation is just simple birth rates, right? The demographic.
Sure.
And so 71% of the public schools in Wisconsin are declining enrollment.
Yeah.
So when I think about a place like Kimberly, and I said I don't know how many football state championships you need to win, but they're declining enrollment.
Yeah.
And so we're really living in this time. We were hopeful that COVID would kind of snap people out of it and have more babies. So those COVID kids would be kindergartners next year, and we're
Yeah.
not seeing them on the radar.
Yeah.
That's the reality of where we're at, which also again leads us to be able to look at the consolidation of our facilities because we anticipate serving students at about a 9,000 student level as we're moving forward compared to where we had been historically at 10,000.
Okay. And then the Department of Instruction's latest report card, we do have a slide of that showing how Oshkosh students are doing. This right here shows that elementary and middle school reading scores are increasing. Let's talk a little bit about this for just a moment.
Yeah, so this would be off of our local assessments, or our iReady assessments that we take 3 times a year. So this would be the end of the school year last year and the improvement that we've been making. And again, we preface this by if you will allow a football analogy, like we celebrate this as a first down as we're moving down the field, but not a touchdown, right? And so we're focused on our literacy scores, proud of the fact that we've been able to invest in our facilities, I should say in our materials, and in our teachers have done a great job, and we continue to do that as we're moving forward.
Okay.
So some increases here, and then I think what you were referencing, we're looking at the high school performances on the report card.
Yes, and here it is right here.
Yeah, so again, really proud of this one. So every year the Department of Public Instruction puts out a report card. Every school gets rated. And if you take a look at the Fox Valley Association high schools, so we have 2 out of the top 3 high schools in the Fox Valley Association, both exceeding expectations. And this looks at both reading and math achievement and reading and math growth, and then on track to graduation, with Oshkosh North at the top, and Oshkosh West just 0.3 of a point behind Neenah. So that's something we are, not that we're competitive, but we're really looking to get at Neenah next year.
Sure. All right. Excellent. I don't know if we have another one. I guess we don't on that. So, all right. Well, we've covered an awful lot tonight. Any regrets about coming to this district?
Never. No, not for a second. So it's been a great. This is my 4th year. So I said I feel like I came in as a freshman. I'm kind of getting to this point of I'm a senior year. Yeah.
Yep.
And hopefully many more senior years. I want to be a senior. Really feel blessed to be able to serve here in Oshkosh. Great teachers, great staff, our custodians, food service, paraprofessionals, just people that just really show up for kids on a daily basis. It's really all we can ever ask for, and then be able to provide them the support as much as possible. And then again, blessed to be able to have the Chamber of Commerce endorsing the referendum, strong business community that really supports and can see the value of the public schools. Just really blessed to be here and excited for our future.
Sure. Well, we're happy to, at least I'm happy to have you here. I don't know about anybody else.
I appreciate that.
This has been a rough year for this city because, we've lost our city manager. Hopefully by the time this airs or shortly thereafter, our new city manager will be at least in the building.
Yeah.
We've lost our fire chief. We're losing the second in command, I believe. I just read the other day. We're losing significant leaders in our community.
Yeah.
And, and I've heard rumblings of a few other people who are looking in their rearview mirror for, something else besides what they're getting right now.
Yeah.
And so who knows? All right, that is it. I guess we're done. I just saw 3 minutes, and now I'm seeing 1 minute, so I'm a little confused. But anyway, I thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks for the time.
A
I
real
truly
pleasure.
appreciate it.
And I just want to let folks know that the polls are open. The election is on Tuesday, April 1st. The polls will be open from 7 in the morning until 8 at night. Early voting, here's some information about that. Early voting can be done through Friday, March 28th at 5 p.m. So if you're registered to vote, great. Vote in whatever way is comfortable for you. If you're not registered to vote, contact the clerk in the area in which you live, whether it's a township, a village, a county, or a city. But get registered to vote and make sure that you do vote, because it is important. So thanks again for being here. Thank you to my crew, and of all people, thanks to you for joining us, and we will see you next time. Until then, take good care. Keep your eye on us. We've got our eye on Oshkosh.